Welcome, tennis fans, to the seventh episode of Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host, IVJ, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about the China Open and the Shanghai Masters tournament. But before I start, please make sure to follow me on all of my social media platforms, that is Instagram and Twitter, using the at Tennis Traverse, that is at Tennis Traverse. Also, if you're listening on YouTube, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and like this video. If you have any comments or suggestions, please feel free to just DM me or email me. And please give my podcast a rating on the platform you're using to listen to my podcast right now. And without further ado, let's get right into today's episode. So, we'll start off with the China Open first because this is the first tournament. So, what I meant by that is it happens before the Shanghai Masters tournament. And the China Open is, in my opinion, longer and there's more stuff to talk about. So, we'll just talk about that first. But before I actually go into the men's side and the women's side, I'll talk about the tournament itself. So this year, it actually have a low attendance rate due to 4 years of not hosting China Open, partly because of COVID issues, and there's another issue that I won't be addressing here, but there's a bunch of issues that delayed the opening of China Open, and this contributed to low attendance of this event. So I think the tournament should promote itself better because when I was there, because I moved to the United States last year and I went to the US Open in 2019 and it was actually packed with people. However, because of just some bunch of issues, nobody's attending, and I think people should really attend this tournament if they love tennis because it's considerably one of the biggest tournaments. So I really hope that the tournament does a better job next year of promoting it. Now we will move on to the players that are competing in this tournament. So we'll start off with the men's side first because it is already over since it is a 500 points event. So as I said before, there are different point values to tournaments other than Grand Slams. So the highest points you can earn if you're not in a Grand Slam is 1,000 points. And then the second highest, I believe, is 500. So that is the men's tournament for China Open. However, the women's side is actually 1,000 points. So there's much more players competing and it's more rigorous and a lot of highly ranked players are there. So I'll just talk about the men's side first, considering it's actually finished. It finished like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days earlier than the women's final, which will be happening on Sunday, and I'm recording this on Saturday. So by the time this episode comes out, you guys already know who the winner is. But that's just off topic. We'll talk about the men's side first. So the first match I want to talk about is Alex de Minaur and Andy Murray. So it was a super close match. They both fought really hard. However, Andy Murray lost, and I believe it was a tiebreaker in the deciding set, and he lost. I believe the score was 9-11 or 10-12. I don't really remember, but he was kind of really frustrated about his loss. So he was smashing his racket, and it really sparked some controversies online because Andy Murray is always kind of known for his bad temper. Like, he is kind of mean to the ball kids and stuff, but I don't know. I think it's just worth talking about because sometimes, even if you're really good, it is really hard to be like, I don't know, polite on a tennis court because tennis is such a lonely sport that sometimes you just, I don't know, you get frustrated easily, but I think it's really important for the players to keep their emotions under control since there's a bunch of small kids that are looking up to them, and I really don't want them to think that it's the appropriate way to act on a tennis court. And another thing I want to talk about is Stefanos Tsitsipas. So he actually lost round one, and he is in horrible form in my opinion. I don't say that easily, but he really hasn't been doing well. So he lost the US Open, I believe, in the second round, And most people predicted that he'll actually lose in the first round. So we can see that, I don't know, most people don't view him as a threat to winning a Grand Slam or a bigger title now. And I think part of it is because of his mental health. I feel like in the beginning of the year, he's been doing considerably well, but now he's doing less well. And I really hope that he can qualify for the ATP finals because he's a really talented player and I love his one handed backhand. However, I feel like he, as I said before, needs to change his dynamic with his dad, which is also his coach, because sometimes that dynamic just doesn't work. Because if two people are too comfortable with each other, I don't know, it doesn't work sometimes. Yeah. And another thing is Felix Algar-Aliassime and Tommy Paul are also struggling with their form as well. So Felix and Tommy were a part of Team World during the Labours Cup, and I talked about the Labours Cup a lot, but they lost like horribly. Team World lost 2-13, and that too is the points from Casper Ruud. And I just feel like they're in bad form. Partly for Felix, I feel like he was recovering from injury, and I just haven't heard much from him this year. And for Tommy Paul, I feel like he did really well during the US Open, right? However, the pressure can get to him. As I said before, he's representing the United States, and United States is historically known as a strong sport empire, so sometimes there's extra pressure on him. However, I really hope that all Steph, Felix, and Tommy can find their form and just play like they always played. And then is Andrei Rublev. So I think it is an upset. I'm not sure, but some people may call it like just a regular match because it was hard fought. However, he lost to Humbert by the score of 7-5. So he actually won the first set. However, he got turned back and defeated with the score of 3-6. And in the deciding set, they actually played in a tiebreaker. And Rublev lost by the score of 3-7 in the tiebreak. I think part of it is because of mental game, because Andrei Rublev has always been known for really, I feel like, voicing out his problem with his mental game, and sometimes it's really hard for the players to, just feel confident in their abilities, because tennis, as I said a million times before, is such a mental and lonely game that sometimes even if you and your opponent are relatively close in your ability to play, it just depends on your mental game. And even though the score of 3-7 may look really far apart, but in my opinion, it's actually a considerably good score in a tiebreak. I don't know. Actually, it might be bad, but I think it really doesn't mean that Rublev is doing bad. I think my point is just that tennis depends on mental game. Sometimes if you're not mentally better than your opponent, you can lose, even though you're skill-wise better. And then it's Grigor Dimitrov. So in my last episode, I talked about how I was really looking forward to Dimitrov versus Rune and Carlos Alcaraz and Lorenzo Musetti. So we'll talk about the Grigor match first, just because I think it's way more entertaining in a way. So he actually won by the score of 6-3, 7-5, I believe, where it's flipped. I'm not sure, but Grigor played super well and he played super solid. However, Rune is struggling. I think part of it is because obviously he part ways from his, I think, fantastic coach in my opinion. And when you change a coach, a lot of strategies differ, and that's just an issue that I think came up. However, I really like the way Rune plays, so I really hope that we can see more of him. And Grigor is so solid, and I don't know, I think this is a really good year for him. And then it is the bad match, I think, which is Alcaraz versus Musetti. So Musetti lost by the score of 2-6, 2-6. I said that this match was going to be interesting because Musetti was one of my favorite players. And not only that, they played a really close match. I believe it was last year. And Lorenzo Musetti actually won. However, it's on clay. But I don't think the surfaces says that much, just because Musetti is pretty solid on hard court as well. And I don't think this is a good year for Lorenzo Musetti, but I think it's a learning experience considering how young he is. And yeah, I really just want to see more of him. And then it is Casper Ruud, my baby. Sorry. Okay, so he played a close match, I think, in my opinion, in the round of 16th against Carlos Alcaraz. Well, not really close, but he lost 4-6, 2-6. I think you guys know I love him, but I think he needs to work on playing against higher ranked opponents because every time he play against players that are better than him, he falls short. And I think part of it is his mental game, of course. And this year really hasn't been the best for Casper, but I really hope that he can win something like a bigger title this year. And then it is the Sinner versus Alcaraz rivalry. So this rivalry is kind of funny. A lot of people compared it to Novak and Nadal. However, I don't think it's a fair comparison just because Rafa and Novak played more matches and they're both super young, Sinner and Alcaraz. However, they played an amazing match in the semifinal and I think Sinner won in the deciding set and it was really close. However, I think Alcaraz, I don't know, maybe he have a mental problem. I don't want to assume anything, but maybe because they have such, I don't know, like interesting matches every single time they play, they have a lot of expectations built up to play a wonderful match. And this time it's still the same thing. They both played wonderfully, but Sinner just was a tiny bit better. And in the final, he actually beat Daniel Medvedev. And this is so good because Sinner really deserves a major title this year. And don't get me wrong, Medi already have like, I don't know, 3 or 4 titles this year. So he really, sorry, doesn't need another one. He should give other people a chance. But this is actually, I believe, Sinner's first win against Medvedev, so yay for Sinner. And it was such a good tournament for Sinner, so he actually struggled with his form at like for the first few rounds because I think he was caught like vomiting. Maybe he was dealing with some sickness. However, he still manages to come back and win that match. And later, when he became better, he obviously regained his form. And now we're talking about the women's side. So for the women's side, it's not done yet because it is actually a 1,000 tournament, which means that, of course, like I said, you can earn 1,000 points if you win this tournament. However, these are just some things I want to mention. So the first one is Rabakina. So she is doing really good. I believe she beat Arina Sabalenka, the former world number one. However, she got beat by Samsonova, who I believe is an upset. And the final of China Open for the women's side is going to be Samsonova and Iga Swiatek. But speaking back to Rabakina, what I wanted to talk about is her draw situation that happened in Tokyo. So basically, the tournament decided that they could give buys, which is like free first rounds, to players that have been doing well, like for other tournaments. However, it is supposed to be like for players that are ranked higher. So, for example, Rabakina is ranked number 3 in the world. Well, not number 3 in the world, sorry, but number 3 competing in the tournament. However, because Zachary and Garcia are doing really well, the tournament awarded buys to the other 2 players instead of her, and that made her really upset and she ended up withdrawing from the tournament. And my input on this is I think it's valid for her to withdraw because I think when a player goes into a tournament, they prepare with the draws that are already there, right? So like they have to bring that amount of stuff for, I don't know, like that amount of matches. However, because of what happened, she gets all of her plans interrupted, and it's really not a good look for a tournament if that's what happened. I'm not sure if that's actually what happened. I have to get back on that, but I think it is. And another thing I want to talk about is Coco Gauff's 16 match winning streak. back. It's super impressive considering how young Goff is, and 7 of them is actually from the US Open, which I think is super cool. However, streak get ended by Iga, who actually beat Goff super easily. I think the score was 6-3, 6-4, and this adds up another win for Iga against Goff, and I think Iga now have 8 victory compared to Goff's 1 victory against Iga. So it's also a one-sided rivalry, but I'm really excited to see how it's gonna develop. And speaking of Rabakina and just the whole China Open in general, I wanted to talk about another thing that caught my attention, which is the Naomi Osaka situation. I don't know if it's a rumor, but basically, Naomi Osaka's former coach, Wen Facet, he signed a deal with Zheng Qingwen, who is a Chinese player, and said that basically he will work with Zheng Qingwen, right? However, after Zheng Qingwen lost, I think one of the matches, he broke the contract and went back to working with Naomi because Naomi is now recovering back from giving birth and her pregnancy. So I don't know. In my opinion, it's not an ethical thing to do if you already have some sort of agreement with another player to just go back. But yeah, that's my put on that. And another thing is Caroline Garcia is doing so much better. I predicted that she'll go far in the US Open. She didn't. However, during China Open, she went pretty far, and she was actually a former tournament champion a couple years back. So I'm really happy that she's doing well. And now it's predictions for the Shanghai Masters. I really hope, well, this is not a prediction, this is just me ranting, but I really hope Casper Ruud can win because he needs an 1,000 title to at least just have some chance to qualify for the ATP Finals tournament coming up. And I just want to see him win an 1,000 title. However, this is not the last chance for him considering there is still the Paris Masters tournament. So yeah, I really want to see him do better. And another thing is there might be a rematch between Sinner and Alcaraz considering Novak isn't here. So there's just more chance for other players to rise up because Novak is just Novak. He's always super consistent. So I really want to see a rematch between Sinner and Alcaraz, and I want to see what will happen. I guess that sums up today's episode. This episode is actually reaching 18 minutes of recording, but I felt like this episode passed by so quickly. I was just looking through my outlines and talking, and 18 minutes passed by. So it's kind of long compared to my other episodes, not during the US Open, of course, but I really hope you enjoyed. And if you're still listening to this point, please make sure to subscribe and not miss any more content posted by me. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Bye.